Tuffers and Vaughan's Cricket Show.
So the first test of the summer is done. England drew with New Zealand at Lord's. We lost a whole day to rain. Oh, wasn't it great to have Test cricket and particularly fans back, Michael? Not the most thrilling chase from England, though, we've got to say.
No, it was great to see people back in the stands. The weather spoiled it on day 3. You could argue that England spoilt it on the last afternoon. I thought they could have had a go for those runs, Ellie.
Well, coming up, we'll hear from Devon Conway on scoring a double century at Lord's on his Test debut. Oh, what an impressive performance that was, Tuffers.
I mean, wow, what a debut that was. 200 he got. He got there with a 6 at the home of Cricket Lords against the likes of Broad and Anderson. I don't know whether it gets any better than that, does it? It was an amazing knock.
Well, you'll hear his insight into that. We'll also be examining the major story of Ollie Robinson, who's been suspended while the ECB investigate historic racist and sexist tweets. And we'll look ahead to the second test too, which is just 3 days away.
Tuffers and Vaughan's Cricket Show
on 5 Live.
Good evening. Welcome to Tuffers and Vaughan with me, Eleanor Oldroyd. So lots to come up in the next hour. We'll also examine England's batting, their shortcomings, as Michael has already slightly highlighted, and also the return of Dom Best to the squad as well. Michael and Phil are here. Well, when I say here, we're all back at home, aren't we, after spending the last few days together at Lord's, which was so lovely to see you all in person.
Yes. No, it was a lovely 4 or 5 days, as you said earlier. It was a shame about losing a whole day to rain. That kind of made the Test match, a little bit up in the air and sort of, declarations and what have you. But it was great to see the crowds back, and it seemed as if they had a lovely time. It was great to see them all basking in the sunshine. Yeah,
and Phil, the cricket was great to watch. I mean, there was some high class stuff. Devon Conway, we're going to hear from him. He was incredible on his debut. Ollie Robinson's bowling on his debut was fantastic. Some not so good stuff as well. I think that makes a Test match when you see a few mistakes and a few poor strokes. There was a few of those from the England team. What I kind of got in the car last night and drove home, it kind of just hit home. This New Zealand team are a good team. Oh yeah, they look at a high-class Test match team. They're probably a spinner light of being a real, a team that could go away from home and win regular. I look at them and think I can completely see why they're so difficult to beat at home in New Zealand conditions, because swing plays a big part, and they've got batters that can really graft and play the ball late, play the ball under the eye line. So they're a good Test match team. As I said, if you put a Nathan Lyon or an Ashwin into that team. Neither of those two would like to play for New Zealand, by the way. But if you did, I think you'd have an outstanding Test match team.
And I've got to say as well that apart from the day when it rained all day, and I just felt so sorry for the people who got tickets for Friday. You look forward to going to a Test match. Yeah. You're dying to get there. You plan to meet your mates, and then it just doesn't stop raining all day long in that way that sometimes it just does at Lord's. You look up and you think, can't see the buildings on the horizon. Those skyscrapers over there have just disappeared into the murk. We're not going to see a ball bowled today. But apart from that, just to have the stands not full, but with that buzz, the hum, the picnics. There was a point where I walked around the boundary on the start of day 2, and there were all the champagne corks just littering just outside the boundary ropes. It was properly great to be back at Lord's. Did you feel like that, Tuffers?
Yes, I did. I mean, walking through the North Gate in the morning was just a joy. As you said, people chatting. There were people in the nets and people sort of wandering around discussing things. Hello, Tuffers. What do you think of the game's going to be like? What do you think of England? It's just great to have that chatter about the game, isn't it? And and the excitement to be back and watching cricket at Lord's. I mean, it's a fantastic ground, and it's looking amazing, isn't it? The new stands by the media centre, I think, looked fantastic, and it was just looking a picture.
So match of the day, top 10 after us, but before Colin Murray. But we're going to start the programme on the news that Ollie Robinson has been suspended from all international cricket while they investigate racist and sexist tweets back in 2012 and 2013, which came to light during the first day of this Test match. While the investigation is ongoing, Robinson has returned to his county, Sussex. He apologised on Wednesday evening, emotional statement that he read down on the boundary ropes. Captain Joe Root saying yesterday the tweets were not acceptable. Well, the Culture Secretary Oliver Dowden criticised the suspension, saying the ECB had gone over the top, a view supported by the Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Michael, were the ECB right to suspend him at this point?
I think they're damned if they do, damned if they don't. They've gone down the decision of suspending Ollie. I personally think it's the right one. I think they had to act. I know there was pressure from powers within that potentially they were going to, ask him to leave the game after day one and not participate for the remaining 4 days. Now that would have been a little bit over the top in my eyes, but I think the ECB, you think about day one, the T-shirts that the players wore, cricket is for everyone. Yes, it's 9 years ago, and do we have sympathy for Ollie Robinson? I don't think we can have, because he was an 18-year-old kid. Of course, we all do things when we're younger, and I'm sure Phil and myself will look back and think, probably not that pleased with a lot of the things that we did back in the day, and you've got to have time to come back a better person, and we're led to believe that Ollie Robinson is a better man now than he was 9 years ago. But if the ECB had done nothing and allowed Ollie Robinson to play at Edgbaston on Thursday, there'd have been another group of people coming at the ECB for not doing anything. So I think they're in a tricky position. I think they've dealt with it as well as they can. It's a serious issue that they're dealing with. I personally think that missing one test match, going away and, just... he needs educating, I'm sure, like all of us do in the modern world and what we're all going through in the changes and changes for the better. So I think he'll go through that process. He'll be talked to by the right people, and it wouldn't surprise me in a few weeks' time he's a spokesperson for lots of younger players that will be going through the pathway programme system with the ECB, both girls and boys from the age of 15 onwards, and he could be that spokesperson for those kind of kids that are going, look, just be very careful what you do, because it will always come back. You're never going to get away with anything. And I hope that happens over the next few weeks. And I really do hope that he's available for the Indian series, which starts at the end of July, early August. But clearly, I'm in the camp that I do think the ECB had to act, and I think they've acted in the right manner.
Yeah, I think also, as you say, he's been suspended, which I agree with. And the ECB have then got to go and find out a little bit more about the man, Mike. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, he's not been sacked, has he? He's not been suspended definitively. He's been given. They will investigate it, and then he will find a route back.
Yes, and I think that the ECB then do have to do that investigation and find out. I mean, we saw him on the steps, looking very ashamed and very embarrassed, reading out his prepared statement and what have you. But I think that they do need to do a little bit more digging about the man, about the situation that he was in at this time and everything like that, and then come to their conclusions about that before. I think it would be wrong for us to sit here and start meting out punishments because we don't quite know what the whole picture is, isn't it? And hopefully the ECB will come up with that and act accordingly. But as you say, very serious thing.
Yeah, I mean, the Cricket Disciplinary Committee will deal with this. I just hope they're not too harsh on a young guy that clearly he is completely different. He wasn't at Yorkshire when he produced these tweets. He was trialling, he was at Kent, and then he had a trial at Yorkshire in 2013. He got a contract, a summer contract, I think it was August 2013. And then he was a bad lad back in the days. He's openly admitted that last week before his Test match debut, that he doesn't look back at his early years in county cricket fondly, because he did a lot of things wrong. I think the sacking that he had at Yorkshire was probably the making of him. He went away to Sussex, and over the last 2 or 3 years, he's been right up there with the best bowlers. I don't know him well enough, Ellie. No. I hear that he's a better person these days, but I don't know him well enough to say to you, I can 100% tell you that he is. And we'll find out, won't we, over the next year, 2 years. He's got to come back and make sure that he's talked a great game. I thought his statement must have been hard for him to read out. Yep. He read it. He fronted up to the team in that dressing room straight away. Five minutes after having a really good first day in Test match cricket, he fronted up to the team and then to the world's media. Not easy for someone playing in their first day for England. So we'll have to wait and see, but I think the ECB have dealt with it correctly.
Yeah.
Well, as you say, it's important. The ECB having made this big statement on the very first day of the test match, of having all the players standing there saying, we stand against discrimination, we stand against racism, sexism, transphobia, homophobia. You know, you've got to take it seriously, haven't you? You can't just let that pass. Just have a listen to this. This is the view of former England batsman Michael Carberry, who spoke to Nagaman Chetty's show earlier.
If it was down to me, honestly, Ollie Robinson wouldn't be playing Test cricket, because for me, this is not a. I don't believe this is a problem where you can rehabilitate someone. That's my personal opinion, and please don't tell me for one instance that this was a one-off situation that Ollie Robinson decided to express his racist, sexist views. Right? This is stuff you are taught at home. Right? Kids are not born racist. This is stuff you're taught. Right? So,
can you be taught to think differently?
Well, possibly.
I.e. rehabilitation.
All right, so on that rehabilitation, so Ollie Robinson came out in his statement and said that he's been working on himself to educate himself better. Now, David Gower expressed that, he should go amongst other county cricketers to get, to spread the word, I believe he said, right? Mm-hmm. Now, for me, with all due respect to David Gower, who's probably never ever experienced any sort of racial discrimination in his life, that for me is too easy. What education is Ollie Robinson really talking about? That's the big, that's because I'm very interested about this word education, because I'm a black man, right, as you know. Mm-hmm. I have white friends, I have Asian friends, I have black friends. I've never needed education on how to speak to you or any of my white friends when I enter a room, right? Isn't that telling you that there's a massive problem in this society if we have to now go and educate yourself on how to speak to me as simply a person of colour?
Well, that was Michael Carberry speaking to Naga a little bit earlier on. Just an interesting, different perspective as well from Moeen Ashraf, who said, as an ex-teammate of Ollie Robinson's in the Yorkshire setup, having roomed, shared the field and gone out for dinners and socials with him, I know full well he isn't a racist. Yes, the remarks were inexcusable and irresponsible. He's apologised. We should forgive and move on. And clearly, I think the key to this, Michael, is that the ECB want to get to the bottom of this, don't they? They want to find out that they are comfortable employing Ollie Robinson, having him in the team at a time when they are trying to make cricket as inclusive as they possibly can, that this is not going to damage the message, damage what they're trying to create. And, and for the sake of making any player of colour who plays with Ollie Robinson feel comfortable.
Yeah, and that's what the ECB are trying to do. Michael Carberry was passionate there, and he's absolutely in his right to be so. But, I do think you can be rehabilitated. I think you can. I think you can have a period in your life where you necessarily don't have the right views, and you necessarily might not come out with the right comments. And you can be educated. There's a lot that needs to be done in our game and in our society. And I'd be worried if I didn't feel that people could change and get given a second chance. Now I do think Ollie Robinson will get a second chance. He will play Test match cricket again. He's under the scrutiny. He's got, whether it's right or wrong, Ellie, he's got a lot of supporters out there. That second morning when he went out to bowl, I think we're all expecting maybe a few boos, a few hisses. Well, he got applauded. Whether that's a sign of our society, I don't know. But I do think
if you look on social media as well, it's very divided, isn't it? Really, there's a real split between people who are in favour of everything the ECB have done in suspending him and pointing out that some of those tweets are absolutely horrendous, and others who are like the Culture Secretary and the Prime Minister saying these were written by a teenager. The teenager is now a man and has apologised. I don't think
that helps, Ellie. I'll be honest with you. I don't think it helps the government getting involved. I don't see, what their place is in this. But I'm totally in agreement with you that it seems to be split right down the middle. Little comments that we've made on Test Match Special this week, I think we've been very fair. I think we've all been in the school where we feel something needs to be done. Something is being done, but we've also said, look, come on, he was 18 years of age. We've all made mistakes in our time, and I think you do need that opportunity to come back and be a better person. I will say I was surprised the ECB didn't have a team of people scouring through. I'm amazed in this era of sport that a national sporting body don't have a team of digital people who would go through all the tweet. I put it in my column about there's 45 under 19 cricketers that are in a group going to the World Cup potentially in January, February next year. So they know of 45 players that are potentially going to play for England. Surely now they go through and make sure that there's nothing else that could come out in the future. So I think there's a lot of lessons to be learnt, but I do hope that I hope we're not in a society where people can't be rehabilitated. I hope that's not the case.
Would you think that we're going to see Ollie Robinson playing for England again in the relatively near future?
I do, yeah. I think he'll be playing against India. And I personally think that would be right. I think it's absolutely right that he misses this week, but I think it's right that he goes away and he comes back against India. And from what I saw as Ollie Robinson, the cricketer, over the 5 days of a test match at Lords, and I know there's a few that wouldn't like to hear the word character, but I look at a player that walked off at the end of day one and all of a sudden he's on the front pages for all the wrong reasons. And then the next day, I don't know how he managed to hit a length so consistently. You look at things like that, and it's not a way to find out about a player, by the way. You wouldn't want that to happen to anyone else going forward. But I look at it and think, wait a minute, he must be made of something. Because he just delivered. There was a time in the second innings, I think it was the fourth evening, when Jimmy Anderson was bowling. And how many times in the last 10 or 15 years have you watched Jimmy Anderson bowling with someone else, and you've gone, oh, wait a minute, Jimmy, you're being outskilled.
Yeah.
He outskilled Jimmy Anderson for that one spell. I know it was only 4 or 5 overs, but I think England have got something. I mean, you go to Australia in a few months' time, you're looking for height, you're looking for that extra bounce, you're looking for a bowler that can bat a bit. Well, he looks that kind of cricketer. So, yeah, absolutely, Elliot. I do think, and I do think if he can stay fit, I think we might see quite a lot of Ollie Robinson over the next few years.
On a pitch that, okay, it was doing a little bit, wasn't it? We did think it was very flat at the start, but there were a few little sort of balls that were going sideways and a little bit of indifferent bounce. He just hit a wonderful line and length from that height. It's that sort of horrible length that you don't quite know whether to go forward or back, and and seamed it more than any other English bowler. So he obviously gets the ball to move both ways on that good line and length. He was a real handful for New Zealand.
Yeah. Well, look, let's move on. Talk about how the game came to a conclusion yesterday. It finished as a draw, as we know. Now, early lunch yesterday, there's a little bit of a shower of rain at lunchtime. We went off, the players went off, we all sat down and had our lunch, and suddenly someone said, hang on, they've declared. And so the target was 273 for England to chase in 75 overs. About 3.6 an over, wasn't it? So this was a bit of a carrot dangling, wasn't it, by Kane Williamson? But why were England not interested, do you think, Michael?
My honest answer is I just don't think the leadership group trusted this batting lineup to have a go for it. I think they'd looked at the pitch, they thought it was just a tough one to score on. The opening pair, they're not flamboyant. You don't think they're ever going to go and really force the issue. But I was disappointed after 15 overs when there were no wickets down. So they've got 60 overs, they needed 240-ish, and I thought, you've got all those young batters. What a great message it would have been to just go around and say, you know what, let's just up the tempo. Let's up the tempo. Let's run between the wickets hard. Let's try and just be a bit more aggressive. You're not talking about from going from second gear to fifth gear. You're talking about from going second gear to maybe third and fourth gear. Wouldn't that have been a great message? As I said on air yesterday, there was no Test Match Championship points available. It's not a series where the points are on the table. Decent crowd at Lords. I thought England missed an opportunity, but you kind of look at it from Joe Root's perspective on the back of a winter where all the young batters really have failed and have not got so many runs. Not many of them got any runs in the first innings. And in the back of his mind, he was probably thinking, wait a minute, if we try and get these runs and we fail, we're going 1-0 down against New Zealand, and if we fail, it probably means 2 or 3 or 4 of the young players have failed again, going into a second test with 2 failures behind them, obviously, except for Rory Burns. And I think he just opted on on the draw. It was obviously a tough week for them all because of the Ollie Robinson situation as well. I personally was disappointed. I thought they missed an opportunity, Ellie, of having a pop.
Yeah,
But can you blame them? I mean, Phil, can you blame them for not wanting to lose? As you say, you've got how many? Were there 3 batsmen on a pair potentially?
Yeah.
That you're putting in the firing line.
I can understand that, and I agree with Mike. It wasn't the fact that they didn't try to get the runs; it was just the body language, the intent. I can understand that you go out there for the first 15 to 20 overs against the likes of Southey, Wagner, and Jameson. Very good bowlers. You make sure you nullify that new ball. You get over that period, and then you just look to sort of like, right, okay, then let's try and take the attack back to the opposition here, as Mike said. Run hard. Look to hit the gaps and just look to be a little bit more proactive. But I think what disappointed most of the people at Lords was just that kind of like, well, we're not even going to consider it. So there is an opportunity there. You never know. England could have gone out there and the likes of Sibley and Burns have put the toe down and increased the tempo, and things might have gone England's way, and then they would have still had plenty of time and plenty of men in the hutch then just to sort of like shut up shop. But I think it was just the body language that everyone got upset with, that they just didn't try to tick it over a little bit more aggressive. We weren't saying coming running down the pitch and trying to hit 6s and 4s. It was just, come on, let's just have a little peep just to see. You never know what might happen.
Phil, it felt to me that England, on the back of 3 hammerings in India at the end of their winter cricket,
I can understand that.
It was just a feeling to me that they just couldn't afford to lose. This is such a big summer.
Sure.
There's 6 test matches to go. They've got a draw. They'll try and get the win at Edgbaston, and then they've got 5 against India. If you start the summer with a loss, and then you've got 6. The surprising element, 2 or 3 days before the test match, Joe gave an interview with Jonathan, said, we're looking to win 7 tests. That's what we're about. We want to win 7 tests. And at the first time of asking, his team didn't go for the win, which, it was slightly confusing with what I'd heard pre-match.
It's not necessarily go for the win. I think people need to sort of like get this clear in their mind. It doesn't mean that it's a 2020 match. It's just the intent and the purpose, which I was slightly disappointed for. This England cricket team is sort of like, it's portraying itself to be a dynamic sort of side. We've got some great young players. We're very talented, and you know what I mean. We're gonna try and get this group to play some really exciting cricket. It doesn't mean everyone running down the wicket and trying to smash it out the park every time. It means just that if there's a little window of opportunity, we might try and just sort of like really rush through it and just see where we end up. And they didn't. They didn't. I think, Mike. I see when they came off at lunchtime. Do you think that they even had a plan to even have a look? I don't. You see.
No, I don't think they set out to have a look. No. I'll be honest, I think they got surprised by the declaration. I reckon Rory Burns and Sibley and Curd had too much beef or something at lunch. They were a bit tired when they went out to bat. It just looked like they were weighed down by a big sticky toffee pudding. But the ECB and England over many years, and particularly the last few, it's been about dynamic and trying to inspire a new generation. That's what the kind of strapline is. We want people to play cricket, watch cricket. I know lots of friends of mine that were in Sheffield yesterday, and they had the cricket on and the football. The football was dying. They were dying for the cricket to just inspire them, give them a lift. So I just felt that the England team just missed that opportunity of just giving the nation a bit of a buzz in the chase.
But hang on, Michael. We're talking about Rory Burns and Dom Sibley here, aren't we? England did not have the option. I mean, and thank goodness for them. In a different context, in the first innings of the match, you want your openers to occupy the crease, keep going, keep batting. I mean, I don't want to turn into Jeffrey Boycott here, but that's what you want. England did not have the option of sending in Ben Stokes and Joss Buttler to open the innings. No, they
didn't, and that's why Kane Williamson declared, because he didn't fear this England batting lineup. And I study this England team closely, and the way that I would describe the batting lineup on a consistent basis, I don't think they play the situation correctly. No. So in the first innings, 2 or 3 of them played too many shots and the ball was swinging around. That was the time to leave it and just dig in and bat like Jeffrey Boycott. You can bat for as long as you want. Yeah. And in the second innings, when you thought, you've got a bit of a licence here, you can start playing a few drives. They didn't play the situation. They didn't play the drive. So, the best situation player that I played with was Graham Thorpe. You know, he could play any situation, one-day cricket, test cricket, and he used to read the game brilliantly. And I think he's got to kind of pass on his wisdom to these younger players of really identified. Technically, some of them are a little bit questionable, you'd have to say. There's a few little issues there, but it's in the mind. Are they reading the situation of what is exactly required at that absolute moment in test match cricket? And I'm not too sure they are reading it correctly at the minute.
Yeah, and about Sibley and Burns, yes, that we like those guys who want to bat long, want to chew up overs in the first innings and everything. But on the other hand, they are professional batsmen, and as you say, when the situation arises, they have got to have the game, and they have got the game where they can just look to push it on a little bit. They're not a robot that just goes out there and leaves, gets one off his hip, or just does that. They have got the ability to just have a little look and be a bit more expansive. So I'm not really buying that. They're professional opening batsmen cricketers, and okay, that we know what we want them to do 9 times out of 10, but they have got that in their locker just to have a little look and be a bit. There'll
be a concern in the England coaching team that a lot of these, Sibley's now played 19 or 20 tests, and he dug in. He probably played to order yesterday. That was the order, to make sure that we get the draw. But I'd just like to see just a little bit of improvement. I'd just like to see one more, counter punch. Has he got a cut shot, or can he get that drive through the offside going with a bit more power? I think he'll struggle against real quality. And again, India, Australia later on, I don't think they'll fear somebody that just looks to occupy the crease. I think you've got to have something else. I think you've got to have that ability to see off the Kookaburra new ball for 20-odd overs. But then it gets flat. It really goes flat in Australia. If you can't capitalise when the ball's flat and the pitch is at its best and it's not doing a great deal, and get that scoring rate up to 4s, 4.5s at times, by the time you get to that second new ball, you haven't done enough damage. And all of a sudden, the Cummins and Hazelwood partnership generally strikes 2 or 3 in those last 10. You go, we've fought so hard for first day runs, and we haven't really got enough, and we've lost 5 or 6 wickets. So I just want to see him have one more counter punch through that offside. I just think he needs to bring something else to his game.
Yeah. I did see somebody tweeting yesterday, I can't remember who it was, one of our journalist colleagues, that Dom Sibley will drive the Australians mad because they'll underestimate him. They'll think this bloke's got no shots, he's got nothing in his locker, and he'll just grind them into the dust. And wishful thinking, but they won't know what to do, because he'll just
drive them mad.
He'll drive them mad.
The commentators will go mad.
Yeah, but listen, you've got to have that in your locker, and that's why Dom's there, and I think he's done it pretty well. As you say, there might be a few little technical issues that
Phil, could he get a cut shot? Could he get a cut shot?
Well, there you go. Or just a poke through the offside.
Yeah, but in Australia, look at Alistair Cook when he got 700 runs back in 10, 11. He had the flick off the hip, he had a little punt down the ground, and he had the cut shot, and he had the pull shot when he was in. If Dom Sibley can just get a cut shot in Australia, something to just say to those offside fielders, you can't just creep in knowing that I can't get them past you. He's got to have something that you can put a bit more pressure on the bowlers through that offside.
Because it won't, in answer to this chap who emailed you, it won't drive the likes of Cummins and Hazelwoods and Stark mad, because they won't lose any sleep over it. They'll just say, I'm a good enough bowler. Listen, he might leave 10 or 20 outside the off stump, but eventually I'm going to get my line a little bit straight, and I'm that good a bowler that he will nick off or what have you. So when you've got them in a position where you've done the hard work, the wicket's flattened out, the ball's got soft, you have got them to cash in a little bit. Hold on, Mike, we don't necessarily want him to have 5 or 6 gears. No, we want him just to have 2 or 3.
Yeah, one more. If you put Dom Sibley and Zach Crawley in a blender, that'd be the perfect player.
That's a nice.
That would be. Ellie, you're great at making cakes. If you could go and get Crawley, and you can go and get Sibley and put them in your mixer, mix them up. I'm not too sure. So you don't have an offside.
It would certainly get a lot of rise, wouldn't it? Because Crawley's very
similar
tall.
height.
It would be a bit stodgy, I think, potentially. Yeah. It's not going to be the most appetising cake, but it might just work.
I think that's what they need to do.
It would fill a hole.
Can I ask you, Michael, about the psychology of Kane Williamson and that declaration? Because there were lots of people who were around yesterday saying, "Oh, he's just this great declaration that just proves what a good bloke he is. He's the spirit of the game. He's made a contest of it. England need morally to step up and give this a go, because Kane Williamson has just given them this little opportunity to chase the runs down." Is that true, or is it just very, very Was there a very low risk element to this?
I think it was low risk. I think he well, first and foremost, he's got a really good bowling attack. So he's got three seamers, which he pretty much can guarantee that at worst case scenario, he could just get a defensive field. It'd be difficult to score. With an attacking field, it's difficult to score because of that consistent. Wagner, Southey, Kyle Jamieson, I have to say, this is the first time I've seen him live. He looks a magnificent bowler. They're lacking a spinner, but I think he thought 75 overs, the three seamers, a bit of big Col de Granholm with his mullet. I think he just thought, this England batting lineup, so much inexperience. You mentioned the players on the pair, the dreaded naught in the first innings, naught in the second innings. Well, Dan Lawrence and James Bracey didn't even go out to face the music for the pair. But yeah, I mean, New Zealand are very clever. They play this kind of humble game, the New Zealanders. They're the nicest team in the world, and they are. They're lovely, but they've got a ruthlessness about them. They know how to trigger a bit of the pressure card. And I think Kane Williamson realised that Joe would be under a bit of pressure because he probably thought in the back of him, I don't think they'll go for them. And the crowd will get on Joe's back and the team's back. And it has. It's worked. It's worked in New Zealand's favour. But they are a good Test match team. And I think when you are a good Test match team, you've got pretty much everything covered in terms of the batting experience, the bowling kind of skills, different angle changes. You can declare on those kind of situations quite happily, knowing that there's very little chance of losing the game.
Shall I give you a stat?
Oh yeah,
guys?
go on.
Lovely.
So teams declaring in the third innings, they have a 44% win rate,
Right.
a 53% draw rate, and a 2% lose rate.
All right,
So he knew. I mean, it was a
Exactly.
2% chance
I'll
of
tell you a
losing.
funny story.
And he's made England look timid as well, hasn't he?
Yeah,
by
well,
he
exactly. He's just played the psychological card. But there was a young England batter, and I won't name him, with the square leg umpire on the fourth afternoon, and they were talking. And again, I won't tell you which of the two umpires, but. The young England batter turned to the umpire and said, we've been looking at the data and working with the analyst, and we've worked out that this week's pitch is a left-hander's pitch.
I've never heard of that one.
Left-hander's pitch, Phil.
Left-hander's pitch.
I mean, why would you rock up if you were right-handed? Just don't bother.
No, but that's funny. But as you say, so stats can lie, but that is a very interesting stat. And you can, and the other thing about this New Zealand side is they are so well prepared. They, as you say, Mike said that they sort of, they come out and they wouldn't say boo to a goose, but they are ruthless. You don't get to number one, and I think they're number 2 or 3 now at the moment in the world, without having that ruthless streak, and also know all the stats, have been out there, assessed the pitches. It's a very experienced side. I mean, look at Tim Southey. Williamson would have gone up to Southey, Wagner and Jameson, and especially Tim Southey, and said, listen, you've played at Lords with Middlesex. Give us a scenario here. What do you think that, you're confident in holding these guys at 270 off 70? And he was said, yes, boss, absolutely.
Phil,
go for it.
You name me another time when you've had one senior batter, real high quality player playing for England, and then the rest are kids, really. Or inexperienced Test match players.
That's the thing, isn't it? Dom Sibley at 25 is one of the more experienced members of the team.
Sure, yeah.
So it's not easy, but that's why I mean. Yeah. That's why I would have thought, with a young set of players who are so almost geared towards being a bit busier and a bit more active.
Yeah.
That's why I say I just think they've missed an opportunity of giving them that chance. You get 4 wickets down, you go, you know what, you shut up shop. And particularly, you almost see off that new ball what they did. They got the 23rd over without losing a wicket. So 23 of the 75 gone. So they got it down to 52 overs, and they still didn't have a dip with 10 wickets in the shed. That for me just was the wrong approach. I'd just like to see them just have a little go, just have a little bit of a pressure kind of push on the New Zealanders.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, this is cast doubt about whether Joe Root backs his batsmen. Do you back the batters? Guys, what do you think of the players that England have got at the moment?
As captain, I'd like Ben and Joss back.
Well, yes, there you go. But then also, listen, I mean, there's the Test series is still alive, isn't it? They're all going up to, Edgbaston as well, to have another crack at it and hopefully sort of win without perhaps then sort of like sort of like falling off the horse and losing, you know what I mean, making themselves lose by getting them into a position or being pressurised into going to something. So if Joe goes up to Edgbaston, wins the toss, gets plenty, and then bowls New Zealand out twice, he'll turn around and say, listen, that was exactly the right decision not to go for him at Lords.
Yeah, he's never lost a test series at home, Ellie. No. As a captain, so in the back of his mind he's thinking, well, why would I risk going 1-0 down and potentially losing that record? You got to also remember Anderson and Broad didn't have any impact this week. How often have we said that in English conditions over the last 6 years, that when they've played together they don't and haven't had too much of an impact? And I think he'll be thinking, well, Edgbaston's a nice ground for both of them. They're surely going to get more wickets at Edgbaston than they did at Lords, and as Phil says, the toss is important. I think this England team possibly do need to win the toss, bat, try and get. I don't look at this batting lineup and think 500. I'll be totally honest with you, but if they can get to 350, I think that'll be very competitive at Edgbaston and give them a chance of winning. It's just then, what team do you think England will play? With Ollie Robinson not playing, will they go back to Jack Leach? Don Bess has come into the squad, which
I'd like to see a
that suggests, doesn't it, that Leach will play and Bess is there as backup?
Yeah, I think it is, yeah. Or they're thinking of Don Bess for that number 8 role who can bat. They really want someone at 8 who could bat. We'll have to wait and see. But I'd be surprised if they go back to Don Bess. I mean, he's done okay for Yorkshire in the last few weeks. He's just helped them beat Sussex yesterday. But
we took 4 wickets yesterday, didn't he, to get the innings victory.
I'd be surprised if Phil, you'd be surprised if they go back to Don Bess straight away, having had the winter where he was left out after that first test and then he came back in the end. But
I mean, he's gone away and bowled nicely for Yorkshire, hasn't he? He's got a couple of fifers, and as you said, bowled well the other day. He got a 4-for. It does give you that extra little bit with the bat, perhaps at that number 8 situation. But crikey, O'Reilly, it'll be a bit tough on Jack Leach, wouldn't it? I mean, it's like, when am I going to get a game?
He doesn't play in England, Jack.
I think I would be having a moan if I was Jack Leach and Don Bess comes in if they're going to play the spinner. I don't think they'll play 2. Does Broad and Anderson play together again? I don't know. We were all saying at the start, 18 months ago, is this going to be the last time we've seen them play together? So there are a few little conundrums to be had by England on the bowling front, but I would think that they'll probably plump to play a spinner, and that would be Jack Leach. Nice weather, and it's been glorious.
Yeah, but before we move on, and I'm kind of conscious that we've been quite rude about Dom Sibley and Rory Burns.
No,
not rude, but it's not exactly complimentary about them in the second innings. But Rory Burns in the first innings, that was an innings of quality, wasn't it? 132, and he batted all the way from beginning to end. First man to take strike, last man out.
Yeah, I mean, Rory's interesting because he's got so many moving parts, but on the release of the ball, he's still. I thought that was excellent this week, that his still position was that head nice and upright. His right foot has a tendency of going right across the stumps to just outside off stumps, so then straight balls he's playing pretty much square of the wicket across the line of the ball, and you always feel he's an LBW candidate, and because that front foot's going across, he starts jabbing at balls around 5th and 6th stump. Well, I thought his alignment was fantastic this week. He played a shot off Jamieson earlier where it swung back and he just hit it through straight mid-wicket. I thought, he's got the nice shape today, and he had to work so hard. 13 runs in that first session. When he was not out overnight, that just kind of held the England team together. They talk about it again. I don't know him that well, but they all say in the team he's full of character, and mental toughness. He just seems to have it, and that should give him a huge confidence boost. He's got a great record against New Zealand. He averages around 70 odd against New Zealand. And I just look at him, and he is like the senior. He's played a lot of county cricket. He captains Surrey, and you just feel that he has to continue with his form, and he has to be the mainstay at the top of the order for England. They play quite similarly. They're kind of both left-handed. Burns tried to work it on the onside, and Dom Sibley the opposite as a right-hander. Would you run out the bar to watch them bat? Possibly not, but in Test match cricket, particularly in the first innings when the ball's zipping around, 2 players that try and occupy the crease and play Test cricket for the longer game, which is what you require.
Yeah, and I think that you're right, Ellie. That 60 odd from Dom Sibley would have helped him. He was under a little bit of pressure coming into this Test match. I think it was 7 or 8 single figure scores in his last 7 or 8 Test match innings so he would have been under pressure, and there were a few guys that I think made the declaration then a step too far, who are actually playing for their places a little bit as well. You know, the likes of Crawley and Sibley and Burns and what have you. So that probably made them a little bit more suspicious.
It's quite ironic that Dom Silby's ended up there, 60 odd not out. He's probably been under instruction to get the draw, and he's done that. Zach Crawley's played 2 really poor drives in the Test match, but possibly not many people are mentioning Zach Crawley. They're all still talking about Dom Sibley and the way that he plays, and I'm kind of thinking, well,
how has he gone from a double centurion to scratching around and not looking?
I don't know. It's mentality. It has to be, because he looks to me like he has got the game for Test match cricket, and he has got the game for the top order in Test match cricket. But I think if he goes and assesses his dismissals from the winter against left arm spin, and the ball was spinning quite a lot, but he took some real high risk options in the winter.
Early
on.
I
think you've got to be a bit better than that. I think you've got to make the bowler get you out. And I'd say the same to him about facing seam bowlers in England, and particularly quality in the likes of Tim Southees. You can't go throwing your hands at the ball. You've got to play in tight. Who got the runs this week? Devon Conway, Rory Burns, Joe Root, Henry Nicholls. They just play with their hands in tight. They don't throw their hands at the ball. And when you've got a little bit of movement coming at you, if you throw your hands at the ball, well, there's a great chance you're going to be edging the ball or creating that gap between bat and pad, and you'll be getting bowled. So I just think with Zach, it's a mentality. I think he's got to be willing to graft and hang around and do what Burns did on that second morning he was not out. He got 13 all morning. We haven't quite seen Crawley do that in Test match cricket yet, where he's walks out there, he thinks, I'm not quite seeing it great, and the runs don't seem, so I'll just stay in. I'll bat the boring way, if you like, and just hang in there. I'd like to see that from Zach Crawley when he's not flowing, and you don't flow all the time in Test match cricket.
Well, let's talk about a man who hung around a lot in this Test match. Player of the match at Lord's, New Zealand's Devon Conway, who scored a double century on his debut at Lord's. And I had a chat with him a little earlier. Let's take you back to that first day at Lord's. What was your mood like in the dressing room beforehand? Can you remember what it felt like on that first morning?
Yeah, I was pretty nervous, understandably, Test debut and at Lord's as well, just to put the cherry on the top. I was pretty nervous, but I think, as soon as we found out that we won the toss and we were batting first, it was about trying to go through my routines that I would normally go through and just try and get my mind into the game and just stay present and be in the moment in terms of what was happening coming up.
And so you walked out into the middle with Tom Latham, and then you didn't get to face the ball for ages.
Yeah, I didn't. I was pretty happy with the fact that turned out the way that did, because I think it allowed me that opportunity to sort of stand at the non-striker's end and just sort of take a couple of deep breaths, watch how the ball was going through, and have those conversations with Tommy in terms of, if the ball was swinging or how it was behaving off the surface. So that was actually pretty ideal for me, just to sort of calm my nerves. That allowed me that time.
What are your memories of how you started to build that innings? I know that you got a few short ones from Mark Wood particularly, didn't you?
Yeah, I think I managed to get through Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad's opening spells. So I was pretty chuffed with getting through that initially, and then when Mark Wood came on, I was aware that he did have extra pace, and he bowled a couple of short ones to me early. And I was taken by surprise just because of how the ball reacted off the surface. I expected a little bit more bounce, and they sort of skidded through and got one or two on the body. But then it was about adjusting to that and then forming a game plan to adjust accordingly, because I knew after I'd been hit once or twice, there was certainly going to be an area that they were going to exploit further down the line. So luckily I managed to sort of change my plan and go from there.
Tell us about the six that you hit to bring up your double 100.
Yeah, it was a pretty cool moment. I sort of tried to take on another one of those short balls from Mark Wood. Sort of top-edged it, but luckily knew it was going in the gap. And whilst the ball was in the air, I had Neil Wagner shouting from the other end, "Go ball, go ball." So, thankfully that managed to just creep over the boundary. And, it was pretty special moment having Wags there out in the middle giving me a massive hug and saying congratulations, and seeing my fellow teammates and support staff up on the balcony cheering on. Was a pretty special moment.
What about your family? Were you able to share any of it with them afterwards? I mean, I presume that you didn't have family there with you.
No, unfortunately I had no family at the game, but I did have a quick phone call with my mum and dad the night after the first day, and as well as the second day. So it was pretty late for them when I did speak to them, but it was cool just to catch up and try and share the little moments that happened throughout the first couple of days.
Just talk to us a little bit about your story, about how you got from South Africa, from growing up in Johannesburg, to playing in New Zealand, because it's been quite an interesting path that you've taken.
Yeah, so I grew up in Johannesburg, started playing cricket from a very young age. Actually played quite a lot of sports from a young age, cricket, football, tennis, hockey, golf. So I was very much into my sports, and then as I grew older, I sort of specialised to try and take cricket on as a profession. Managed to play a number of years in South Africa, and I decided to try and make a move to New Zealand. I had a couple of friends of mine who lived in New Zealand, and we made the decision. My partner and I made the decision to move over to New Zealand, and I was very lucky to be presented with a couple of opportunities from the start as I arrived, and and then just the rest is history from there. Throughout those opportunities, I've been well supported and backed by not only the Wellington Firebirds, my local team in New Zealand, but mainly the Black Caps and all the players around. So that's pretty much been my journey.
So did you just feel you weren't going to get those opportunities in South Africa?
No, I wasn't necessarily motivated by cricket. I think it was about finding a new lifestyle change. It wasn't only cricket for me. That's the beauty of it. I never put myself under pressure to perform in cricket. It was about just being in New Zealand and just cherishing living in the country and becoming part of the culture, and that was probably the factor that helped me the most to get to where I am.
And at the same time, you played an awful lot of cricket in England as well, didn't you? And I was amused to see that actually quite a lot of local newspapers around the country have been claiming you over the last few days. So, there was a headline in the Derbyshire local paper saying former Matlock CC cricketer gets a double hundred at Lords, and also I think the East Anglian Daily Press as well. So how many of the teams that you've played for in this country can you still name?
Yes, so, I played for Vauxhall Mallards Cricket Club in the Norwich League, and I played for Kersley Cricket Club in the Bolton League. Very, very fortunate to have the opportunity to play in different areas in England. So, I've really cherished my time playing here in England, and I'm pretty much looking forward to having the opportunity to play for Somerset as soon as the Test series ends for us as the Black Caps.
And in all of those years, did you think that the chance that you now have to stamp your name on international cricket would come eventually?
Yeah, it's always been my dream to play international cricket, and I think throughout my career I've always tried training really hard and working hard and giving myself the best chance of achieving those dreams. So I've always believed that one day I'll make it. So thankfully I've been given that opportunity, and it's pretty awesome to get these experiences, and especially at Lords was it's a pretty special feeling.
Well, look, enjoy it. It's going to be a fantastic time seeing you at Edgbaston as well with a full crowd. I think that's going to be quite an atmosphere. So great to talk to you, Devon. Thank you very much indeed, and many congratulations again for what you did at Lords.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, that was Devon Conway. What a nice guy he sounds. It's so interesting, wasn't it, Phil? Well, I was going to say, I think he's played for over 20 different teams in South Africa, New Zealand and England as well. But it's so interesting, isn't it, that, obviously he had this experience in the leagues and in the club game in this country, and he knows how to play cricket in the UK.
Well, I mean, that hits the nail on the head for me, experience. He's not some fresh-faced youngster who's been selected, and just come up to Lords and gone out there and smashed a double hundred. I think he's 29, is he, or something like that? So he's been around the block. He knows his game inside out. He knows his mind also, and doesn't get ruffled or sort of upset as well. And he just looked to me, Mike, just like a very natural kind of cricketer. You know what I mean? He just went about his business like it was like falling off a log.
Yeah, well, at 29, he's played over 100 first-class games. He knows how to score runs. He plays the ball so late. The one thing that stood out for me was when he said Mark Wood hit him a couple of times and the ball didn't bounce quite as much. He said he had to reassess his game plan. And again, it's something that we've just talked about. The England young batters, have they got a game plan? Because to score runs at Test match level, you have to have one, and you have to change. You have to change on the bowler, what they're doing to you, the conditions, the pitch, and that's to me what Devon Conway certainly has. I mean, Kane Williamson must be licking his lips. He can't believe his luck. They need a spinner, but they also needed an opening batter, and all of a sudden Devon Conway's arrived. We must think, it's very, and the World Test Championships in a couple of games. He cannot believe his luck, Kane Williamson. It reminds me of Jofra in 2019 when Owen Morgan suddenly arrived at the World Cup with this bowler that could bowl 90 odd miles an hour. It was perfect timing. I think Kane Williamson, and it was interesting. Kane Williamson and the likes of Ross Taylor. You could see that they were sat on the balcony next to him, probably just picking his brains on. And when Kane Williams and Ross Taylor have been outstanding great players, they're probably picking his brains of how to face Anderson and Broad, and just picking his ideas of how to play in English conditions. He's around for however many more years he can play. He's certainly going to be playing for New Zealand because he can bat.
Yeah, and you see a lot of young kids perhaps now coming into the game, and they have a style, and this is what I do, and this is how I do it. He just struck me as someone, as he just said then, I had to readjust my game plan because I got hit a couple of times, as you said, Mike, and he just looked like it was a natural thought process, that he's gone through that, and he could sort of counteract anything that was thrown at him naturally, and I suppose that comes from experience and being an absolutely, fantastic opening batsman at the top of his game at the moment.
Just being good.
Yeah, he's just very
and
good.
He's good in all formats as well, isn't he? He's top the batting figures in T20 and 50 over cricket as well. So, I think he's going to be a thorn in the side of a lot of international teams.
It didn't look sort of forced at any time or get flustered at any time. He was computing everything very naturally in his own head.
I think, New Zealand, you look at Devon Conway at the top, and I think Kyle Jamieson. I think we're going to see a lot of Kyle Jamieson over the years. He just looks like a mammoth. 6'8", hits that length hard. He's got the skills to go without swing, in swing. He's got quite a sharp bouncer as well. So, New Zealand have got some very handy cricketers at the minute.
And just to gladden your hearts even more, we're hearing that when the second test starts at Edgbaston on Thursday, Trent Boult could be back for New Zealand.
Well, there you go. That's even more. That's another weapon in that seam bowling armoury.
Who's missing out, Phil? Who's missing out? Saudi has the rest, maybe.
Well, Saudi has
bowled
a rest
beautifully, didn't he?
There's a whisper that he may rest going into the World Test Championships. If it was just a 2-match series, obviously Saudi plays, but there's just a little whisper that he may be the one that rests. I can't see why they go with a spinner, Phil.
Yeah. We were disappointed, Mike, actually. The couple of overs that he did bowl. I don't know. I don't think he's got a lot of confidence in him, and his stats. I was surprised at Santner's stats. Yes, I think he's averaging about 44 in Test match cricket. Yes. I thought he was a little bit better than that, but he bowled a couple of good overs, didn't he? And was a threat, especially to the left-hander Rory Burns out in the footholes. And then Kane Williamson immediately sort of took him off. So I don't think he's got a lot of confidence in the spinner. If they wanted to win the Test match and win the series against England, and that was all they were here for, I think that Southey and Boult would play and Santner wouldn't play.
They've got Patel in the squad, a left-arm spinner who's got over 200 first-class wickets, and with the way that they bat so deep. Wagner's got. I don't know. I think he's the greatest ever number 11. I've not seen a number 11 in Test cricket play shots like he plays.
Proper shots.
So
he could bat 8.
They can all push up one, and if Patel can't hold a bat like Wagner, he can be at 11. So I think they're a good enough team, New Zealand, that if they need the spinner, they don't need the extra batting in Xander. They just go for the best spinner.
Yeah. Agreed.
From we've talked about the England batting lineup quite a lot tonight. What about the England bowling lineup? Do you play Anderson Broad? Do you keep Mark Wood in? Arguably, Ollie Robinson was very effective, but some of those spells that Mark Wood bowled, particularly on the second day, I thought he looked absolutely top notch. Yeah,
if he's fit and raring to go, I'd stick with him. With the way that England have rotated the seamers over the last year or so, you'd feel that they probably will make change. But to get Jack Leach in, it means that they're either going to go with something like Broad at number 8, which they won't want to do, or Mark Wood at number 8. Overton could play because he offers a little bit with the bat. I honestly have at this stage, Elliot, I have no idea what they're going to do because they've rotated so much. I mean, I would pick Broad and Anderson now on the back of what they've done of late. If you're trying to win the Test match, if you're trying to rotate to make sure that they're fit for India. Ollie Stone comes in potentially for Mark Wood. I'll be honest, Elliot, I have no idea what they'll do because of the rotation of the last few months.
Yeah. I have to say that I was trying to make an argument during the Test match that they should just get Chris Woakes back off his holidays and get him playing at Edgbaston because
how's he on his
where's he gone
on a holiday? How's he got away? Where is he?
I saw him posting that he was in Southwold actually. So not very far. Yeah, not holiday, not away, but you know.
No, he's not on the amber list, is he?
Yeah. No, and you must remember. You must remember, Ellie. You know what I mean? There are a lot of guys missing from this side, as you say, the likes of the Currans and Chris Woakes. That does not make that side a lot more balanced. Chris Silverwood at the start of the Test match said that this would be a slightly imbalanced side that we're going to be looking at here at Lords, and it was proved kind of correct. So
remember the Ashes Test there, Phil? Number 219, it spun. Nathan Lyon was ragging it. You know, it's a dry week. I think Edgbaston's always a very, very good wicket because it offers a bit for everything. There's always a little bit of movement, a bit of swing, but if it's a dry week, you would want your spinner. And I'd be very, very disappointed for Jack Leach if he's not getting the nod as England's number one spinner on a pitch that will, probably help the spinner.
Yeah.
Do you know, I'm excited for it already.
Me too.
I'm really looking forward to getting to Edgbaston. Holly's stand will be full.
Any chance of you bringing a cake this week, Ellie? I mean, I was rather disappointed at Lords. I'm sorry. You've got a couple of days.
I apologise. All right then. What are you having, Michael?
Well, I like my lemon drizzle.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if you could produce a nice moist lemon drizzle,
I can knock off a lemon drizzle, not featuring Dom Sibley or Zach Crawley as any of the ingredients between now and Wednesday, and I'll see you up there.